Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today's game will be played against Uzuri. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns, with the goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. Today's game features my Searing Emberblade list. If you would like to check this deck list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the deck link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. I want to show this game for a few reasons. First, I posted an Uzuri game last week and received some feedback that it maybe wasn't of the highest quality. This game was much tighter, I think this game was much better, and with Uzuri apparently being a very difficult matchup for FaB, since Ben Dodd's list came into the forefront, I do want to highlight this matchup a little more. Uzuri went from being relatively untuned and kind of just slightly better Arachne to being something that can very easily race us and throw disruption into the mix as well. Also, full disclosure, I am purging a bit of my backlog of games as I am updating my deck lists. This one is just a bit out of date, but compared to the others, it was more relevant to where my deck lists are at now. That all said, this is a very good game, and I think we can all learn something from it. For sideboarding against Uzuri, the only change we're going to make to our equipment is we are going to bring in our Spring Tunic instead of our Flamescale Furnace. I don't want to block at all against Uzuri, and the game will go long enough that we could potentially get 2 or even 3 uses out of our Spring Tunic, and because we aren't arsenaling anything, we want our Tunic to pay for a Spreading Flames or an Art of War, and essentially be the 5th card in our hand that would usually be filled by our arsenal. As far as the deck itself, we aren't going to make any changes here. This list is perfect for Uzuri. We don't want to bring in defense reactions because we want to make Uzuri play our game, not try to match hers. Bringing in defense reactions slows us down and gives Uzuri more time to find her codices, to put blues into her discard for looking for scrap, to put nimbleism into her discard for nimble strike. We want to race Uzuri, and defense reactions only hinder us. Warmonger's Diplomacy is not any more valuable against Uzuri than any other hero. There is a potential for it to screw up a nimbleism or a codex turn, but for the most part, is just a blue that doesn't deal damage. And Command and Conquer, while being very good, can be clunky in our deck, and doesn't do anything particularly well against Uzuri. She usually isn't arsenaling anything that she really needs. So we're going to leave Command and Conquer out, keep our very tight cost curve, and try to blow her up with the cards in our deck. I touched on it briefly. Our game plan into this matchup is to race off of 4-card hands. We don't want to arsenal anything because we want Uzuri's Command and Conquers and Leave No Witnesses to essentially be dead cards, or at least Command and Conquer is a brutal assault, Leave No Witnesses is a 0 for 4 with no real on hit. Outside of that, we are just racing. We are looking for the most aggressive value we can in every turn cycle, which means no blocking, keep our blues, attack with them. Once we start to get lower on life, blocking becomes a bit more viable, especially with Uzuri having flick knives as a way to sneakily close out a game. But don't think about that. For the most part, we are thinking about how to deal the most damage in every turn, and counting on the efficiency of our deck to outvalue what Uzuri is capable of doing. She is not good at playing out 4-card hands. Even her 3-card hands can be a little suspect. So she'll be doing quite a bit of blocking, but with only 2 cards left, and knowing that her Leave No Witnesses has no value if we don't arsenal, her Command and Conquers have no value if we don't arsenal, and even her Shakedown, taking one of our cards, only deals 6 damage, and with even 3 cards in our hand, we can certainly do more damage than that. So, it is an interesting, complex matchup where we have to weigh our offensive value against what she can put out on defense and disruption, and the easiest way to show how this all works is to jump into the game. Our Phoenix Flame goes to discard. We can see that Uzuri is on an interesting equipment plan. The Mask of Perdition is not something that I see a lot of. Uzuri pitches an Eradicate to play the Spider's Bite, which is not a card that I often see Uzuri running, but her deck size would indicate that she is only running 62 cards. Of course, that is enough to fatigue us. FaB with multiple Phoenix Flames in discard is very difficult to fatigue, and if this game gets that far along, we can talk about why. But for the most part, I'm expecting this Uzuri to play a bit slower than Ben Dodd's list would. Now, this is good news for us. It means that we will get more value out of our Spring Tunic, but it's just kind of weird. With us being on the draw, we're going second here. I feel okay about blocking a little more aggressively. I can block this Spider's Bite with my Brand with Cinderclaw, knowing that I will draw up at the end of my opponent's turn. I have my Rise from the Ashes and my Lava Vein Loyalty to do more blocking with, or I can attack if necessary. This is fine too. I'm keeping the blue in hand. Between the two, I think it doesn't particularly matter. Keeping the blue is probably better, but only marginally so. Uzuri plays Isolate. We are likely going to get hit with some sort of on-hit here. The most we can block with is Lava Vein Loyalty due to Isolate's Dominate effect. Because we get to draw up at the end of Uzuri's turn, it takes a lot of the power away from something like a Surgical Extraction or a Shakedown. But if this is a Death Touch, we probably get a Blood Rot and end up taking even more damage on this turn 0. It is a Death Touch. We likely take that damage. So Uzuri pushing 5 over the top of blocks is really, really good. We draw into a Snatch and another Spreading Flames, and normally I would be pretty okay with this hand. Spreading Flames, Emberblade, Snatch, pass. Regardless of whether the Snatch hits, we get an Arsenal and all is nice. But we don't want to Arsenal in this matchup, so now we are left with an interesting question of, do we attack with both Spreading Flames or do we not? We have 2 real lines available to us. We pitch our blue to Spreading Flames, activate FaB, play Phoenix Flame, play Snatch, which is 13 total damage. Or we attack with Spreading Flames, we attack with Emberblade, we pitch our Spreading Flames to FaB to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, and then we play Snatch, and that's 12 total damage. Playing out both of these Spreading Flames nets us 1 point of damage, but it takes both of our Spreading Flames out of our deck. And while we don't have too many ways to shuffle our deck, we do have 3 copies of Flamecall Awakening and a Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. If this game goes long enough, we would see one of those spreading flames come back. And with that in mind, I'm going to take the second line of pitching my second spreading flames to pick up and play the Phoenix Flame. I want to see this spreading flames come back later. And netting 1 point of damage at the start of the game is not worth losing one of the strongest cards in my deck. Uzuri here doing a bit of blocking. This is great news for us, especially seeing this Fate Foreseen. Uzuri certainly could have a second defense reaction in hand for Snatch, but it is less likely. And while the Snatch hitting puts a card into our arsenal, we can't really avoid doing that. Having a card in arsenal is better than not having a card in arsenal if we couldn't have gotten value out of that card. We certainly wouldn't want to arsenal Snatch here, but if the Snatch hits and we draw something, because we can't use it anyway, we might as well arsenal. Uzuri here attacking with E-Strike, choosing to draw a card. With what we have in hand, it's fine. We're happy to take this 5. We can certainly send more damage than that back. We have an interesting call to make with this Art of War. We have all reds in hand and no Tunic available, so playing the Art of War is a bit of an imposition on us. And because we already have 2 Draconic cards in hand, I'm more of a fan of pitching the Art of War to the Emberblade. On the one hand, we see it come back later in the game. On that same hand, we get more damage out of each card in our hand this turn. And on the other hand, there is nothing to argue for keeping this Art of War. We open ourselves up to Leave No Witnesses or Command and Conquer, of which we have seen neither from our opponent so far. So pitching the Art of War for Emberblade feels a lot better to me than trying to save it and hoping that Uzuri doesn't hit our arsenal. Now, if the Spring Tunic had 3 counters on it instead of 2, I would absolutely arsenal Art of War here. If we do get hit with a Command and Conquer or a Leave No Witnesses, we could use our Tunic to play the Art of War at instant speed, and we turn our 4-card hand into a 5-card hand. We're just playing out our cards. Uzuri does a bit of blocking, that's all fine. She does keep 2 cards in her hand. I'm guessing that those 2 cards are going to stay there. If she had something like a Leave No Witnesses or a CMC, maybe she blocks with that, noticing that we won't be keeping an arsenal. But she does just keep those 2. Uzuri attacking with Nerve Scalpel is not something that I feel the need to block. We don't have reactions in our deck, and we do see that we would have been punished for arsenaling that Art of War. As it is, we can just not block this Leave No Witnesses. Uzuri gets a card off the top of our deck and potentially 1 or 2 silver. She gets 1, hits our Salt the Wound, which is a bit of a loss. Losing finishers when we have not used our pouncing links yet is unfortunate, but is fine. Because we have our Tunic available, we can play this Mounting Anger, which means we can play our entire hand. We push quite a bit of damage, and even have the potential to break pouncing links at the end of this while getting our Shuko value from our Phoenix Flame. So I want to wait on this Mounting Anger. I want to play it later in the chain. We always have the option to pick up our Phoenix Flame as a reaction, banish that to the Mounting Anger, and get our value that way. So I don't need to lead with the Mounting Anger here. I want to bait any defense reactions out of Uzuri, and playing this Ravenous Rabble is a really good way to do that. Uzuri draws into another Frailty Trap, that's fine. We have no arsenal, and we weren't going to attack with our Emberblade this turn anyway. Uzuri letting this Ravenous Rabble hit is an interesting sign. I do wonder if she's intending to play out these 3 cards in hand. If so, she's going to take quite a bit of damage. Lava Vein Loyalty gets blocked by E-Strike. This is great news, as it really opens the door for this Mounting Anger to hit. We are going to react and pick up our Phoenix Flame. In paper, we could react to the Mounting Anger hit effect so that we know whether Uzuri was going to use a defense reaction before we pick up our Phoenix Flame for any fringe case where that matters. But we'll do it in the reaction step on Talishar. And we are going to break Mask of the Pouncing Lynx to get our 6 points of value. I could have seen waiting a little longer to pull that off, but I think doing it there is fine. Uzuri here playing the Codex and grabbing a Death Touch. So we are looking at taking a potential 8 points of damage over Uzuri's and our turn thanks to Blood Rot, but it means that we actually get to use the card in our arsenal. We're sitting on a Frailty token, but that's fine. I am still most likely looking at Lava Burst here. We will discard one of our 2 Ronin Renegades. On our turn, we can pitch our blue to play Mounting Anger, Searing Emberblade, Ronin Renegade, pick up and play Phoenix Flame, then attack with the Shuko-powered Lava Burst. And in fact, that is what I'm going to do. We will take our 8 points of damage from Uzuri, and we will throw back quite a bit more than that. Just as before, we are going to hold back on attacking with the Mounting Anger. We can't do much fancier sequencing than this. It's unlikely that Uzuri blocks the Emberblade, as it is only coming for 2. Uzuri does very aggressively give us Flick Knives. I don't know if I agree with that. Yeah, she prevents an extra point of damage, but Flick Knives is such a great way to close out a game, or if she's going wide on a turn, a great way to flick the Spider's Bite at us so that we can't block effectively when we need to. I think if I'm Uzuri here, I'm happy to take an extra 2 points of damage just to keep Flick Knives. It is such a strong card. Ravenous Rabble here coming in for 4 with Go Again. Our hand is fine. We can certainly be aggressive with it, and we do draw back into that Spreading Flames. So we'll talk about how we want to sequence with that. We'll take this 4 from the Ravenous Rabble and see what Uzuri can put together. It's an already dead. Yes, this does take us to 7. Uzuri does get a card off the top of our deck and potentially another silver, but none of that makes me feel threatened enough to block. And in fact, Uzuri just gets one of our blues. Sequencing here is not all that complicated. We want to open with our Mounting Anger because we want to delay our Rising Resentment. Ideally, our sequencing here is Mounting Anger, Searing Emberblade, Rising Resentment hits, banishes Spreading Flames, which we then get to play for free, pick up and play Phoenix Flame. Spreading Flames benefits from its own ability in that case, as does the Phoenix Flame. If the Rising Resentment doesn't hit, then we have a choice to make. But hopefully, Uzuri is going to give us blocks on the Mounting Anger and on the Emberblade, then feel pressured to keep these 2 cards. Oh, I hate this line. I really disagree with what I did here. I guess I'm trying to leave the door open for playing this Spreading Flames, but I don't think that's good at all. I think attacking with the Emberblade here was 100% the right play, and this is absolutely a punt from us. Uzuri does block. She gives us a Shakedown, which is a great card. But No, this is not a good decision at all. We will attack with the Ember Blade. The Ember Blade gets blocked, so regardless, this wasn't going to connect. But at the same time, we're on Talishar to improve our play. Winning or losing, while can lead into some good or bad feelings, ultimately doesn't matter if we are improving at the game, and this is a spot where we definitely could have made a better decision. We'll play our Phoenix Flame, get our point of damage, and we are going to Arsenal this Spreading Flames because we really can't do anything else with it. If we could have played this, if this was a Lava Burst or even just another 0 for 3 go again, I would have been happy to play it here. But because we really couldn't effectively use the card, we will block with it. And in fact, with this game steadily coming to a close, if this last card in Uzuri's hand was a Leave No Witnesses, we could have blocked to protect that Spreading Flames. Uzuri just arsenals this last card in hand, and we have a very big turn ahead of us. Our Tunic is online. We have a Spreading Flames in arsenal. We have multiple ways to give that. We have multiple ways to get value out of that Spreading Flames, and we still have our Snapdragon Scalers. So we need to think about how we're going to sequence this turn. We can start with Tunic, then Spreading Flames. We can follow that with blue Brand with Cinderclaw to get value out of that. The real sticking point here is this E-Strike. We could bottom our Soul Bead Strike and draw a card, then use our Snapdragon Scalers, or we could arsenal the E-Strike, or we could do any number of things, but I'm thinking about how I want to get value out of my Spreading Flames. So what I'm advocating for here is we play our Spreading Flames, we'll pitch our blue, follow that with Brand with Cinderclaw, follow that with a FaB activation to get our Phoenix Flame, play that, which gets Shuko value and Spreading Flames value, then attack with the Ember Blade, which gets Spreading Flames value, then attack with Lava Burst, and we arsenal our E-Strike. We are putting ourselves in a position to get blown out by a CNC or a Leave No Witnesses, but we're also dealing a ton of damage to Uzuri. Choosing to use the Tunic here. I have an idea that I am intending to E-Strike bottom Soul Bead Strike. We'll see if that's the case. I could also look to do something like attack with Ember Blade, pick up Phoenix Flame, bottom Phoenix Flame to E-Strike. See, we are bottoming it to get the blue. I think this is fine. We are using the Brand with Cinderclaw to get our third Draconic Link, which is going to let us pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, then finish the turn with Lava Burst. So this is pushing quite a bit of damage, and I can see the value in the line I took. We get Uzuri's entire hand while also pushing a lot of damage, and we draw into an Art of War that should let us close this game out. We are just going to banish one of our stab wounds and see what we can draw into. Drawing into a very good hand of cards: Ronin Renegade, Rising Resentment, Ember Blade, pick up Phoenix Flame, then bottom it to E-Strike. Should easily get us the win. Uzuri playing Oasis Respite will gain her a point of life, but is also using 2 cards to block a 4-power attack, which puts us in a very good position to win. Ember Blade here for 3 will get Uzuri's last card. And even if this is a D-React in Arsenal, which I do not believe it is, I think Uzuri would have used it already, we pick up the win. So, maybe that wasn't as good of a game as I thought. I do think it showcased a few areas where we could have really tightened our gameplay, sequencing that Rising Resentment later in the turn, while ultimately not mattering in this game, could easily matter in another. That is something we need to work on. Recognizing when later in the game you can arsenal a power card and protect it if you need to will get you the same value that it got me in this turn. Noticing when you can pitch your power cards rather than getting slightly more value by playing them, only to draw them later in the game, is a great skill to learn. FaB is not one for pitch stacking, with all of our ways to shuffle the deck and the fact that our games don't go very long at all, but think of it less as pitch stacking and more as just keeping powerful reds in your deck when doing so does not seriously inhibit your damage. And finally, getting your reps against Assassin now should prove very, very good. They are benefited by Icelander being out of Classic Constructed. We know that Arachne is getting a bit of support in heavy hitters. Maybe Uzuri gets something as well. All in all, it should be a matchup that we run into more often, and it is a matchup that I've had trouble with in the past. So get your reps in now and work on tightening that gameplay. I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned something from it. If you did, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback, and otherwise I will see you back here next week for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.